What happens when Hollywood's most beloved nice guy finally reaches his breaking point? What happens when years of carefully maintained composure crumble in front of a live studio audience? Today, we're diving into one of the most shocking moments. In recent talk show history, a moment that left viewers speechless and revealed a side of Keanu Reeves that nobody saw coming. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really pushed Keanu over the edge. Now, let's get into what really went down on that fateful taping of the Drew Barrymore Show. The studio was buzzing with its usual pre-show energy. Keanu Reeves sat in the guest chair, that familiar, calm demeanor intact as he adjusted his dark suit jacket. Drew bounced onto the set with her characteristic enthusiasm, her smile bright under the studio lights as she settled into her host chair. "Keanu, thank you so much for being here," Drew began, her voice carrying that warm, conversational tone that had made her show so popular. "I have to say, you look amazing. How are you feeling?" "I'm doing well, thank you," Keanu replied, voice measured and polite. "It's good to be here." Drew leaned forward slightly, her hands clasped together. "Now, I know our audience is dying to know about your latest project. But first, I want to talk about something more personal. You've been in the public eye for decades, and you've maintained this incredible mystique. People call you the internet's boyfriend, this perfect gentleman. How do you feel about that image?" Keanu's smile remained fixed, but something flickered. In his eyes, "I think people see what they want to see. I'm just trying to do my job and live my life." "But come on," Drew pressed, her tone becoming more animated. "You have to admit there's something almost too perfect about your public persona. The motorcycle rides, the subway rides, eating alone on benches. It's like you're performing this role of the humble celebrity. Don't you think that's a little calculated?" The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. Keanu's posture straightened slightly, and his smile became more forced. "I'm not performing anything," Drew laughed. "But there was an edge to it now. Right? But those moments always seem to get photographed, don't they? I mean, what are the odds that a paparazzi just happens to be there every time you're being relatable?" "Drew, I think you might be reading too much into things," Keanu said, his voice still controlled, but with a hint of tension creeping in. "I don't control when photographers are around." "Of course not," Drew said, waving her hand dismissively. "But let's talk about your personal life. You've been very private about relationships, very guarded. Some people say that's admirable, but others wonder if you're hiding something. What's the real reason you keep people at such a distance?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Keanu's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I believe in privacy. I think some things should remain personal, but doesn't that feel lonely? Here you are, this beloved figure, and yet you seem so isolated. Don't you think that's a little sad? Don't you think people deserve to know the real you?" "The real me is what I choose to share," Keanu replied, his voice growing firmer. "I don't owe anyone my private thoughts or personal relationships." Drew tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that felt more like an interrogation than an interview. "That's interesting, because I've heard from people in the industry that you can be quite different behind the scenes. Not quite the Zen master everyone thinks you are." The camera caught the moment Keanu's composure began to crack. His hands, which had been resting calmly on his knees, clenched slightly. "What exactly are you trying to say, Drew?" "I'm not trying to say anything," she replied with false innocence. "I'm just curious about the disconnect between the public Keanu and the private one. For instance, I heard about what happened on the set of your last film, something about you losing your temper with a young actor." "That's not accurate," Keanu said, his voice taking on a warning tone, but Drew wasn't backing down. If anything, she seemed energized by his discomfort. "Oh, we'll get to your movie, but this is fascinating to me. Here you are, getting defensive about a simple question." Defensive about the studio audience was now completely silent, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Keanu stared at Drew for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. "What game are you playing here?" "No game," Drew said, her smile never wavering. "I'm just trying to have an honest conversation. You know, the kind of real talk that people appreciate." "This isn't honest conversation," Keanu replied, his control slipping further. "This is a pambush disguised as an interview." Drew laughed again, but it sounded harsh in the tense silence. "An ambush. Keanu, these are just questions. If they make you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why. Because they're invasive. And based on false premises, he shot back, his voice rising slightly for the first time. You're not interested in having a conversation. You're interested in creating drama. Drew's eyes lit up with something that looked almost predatory. Is that what you call it when someone asks you direct questions? When someone doesn't just accept the carefully crafted image you present? Keanu stood up abruptly, and the sudden movement caused a ripple of tension through the studio. I think we're done here. Oh, come on, Keanu, Drew said, her voice taking on a mocking tone. Don't tell me the great Keanu Reeves can't handle a little heat. Sit back down. Let's really talk. No, Drew, we're not going to really talk, Keanu said, his voice now carrying a steel edge that sent a chill through the studio. Because talking implies mutual respect, and you've made it clear that respect isn't part of your agenda today. Drew's smile faltered for just a moment before returning full force. Mutual respect, Keanu. I'm giving you a platform to show who you really are. Isn't that what every actor wants? What I want, Keanu replied, still standing, his hands now visibly trembling with controlled anger, is to promote my film and have a civilized conversation. What you want is to tear someone down for entertainment. The studio audience was completely silent now, some people leaning forward in their seats, others looking uncomfortable at witnessing this public dismantling of Hollywood's golden boy image. Tear you down! Drew's voice rose with mock indignation. Keanu, I'm trying to build you up by getting past this fake persona you hide behind. Don't you think your fans deserve authenticity? My fans deserve to be treated with respect, Keanu shot back. They deserve to watch interviews where the host isn't trying to ambush the guests for ratings. They deserve better than this circus you're creating. She was losing control of the situation. A circus? You think asking legitimate questions about your public image is a circus? Legitimate questions. Last 10 minutes, trying to paint me as some kind of fraud, implying that my private moments are staged, suggesting I'm hiding some dark secret. If that's your definition of legitimate journalism, then we have very different standards. The cameras captured every micro-expression as Drew's face flushed red. I'm doing my job, Keanu. I'm asking the questions that people want answers to. No, Keanu said, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet again. You're exploiting people's curiosity to justify cruelty. Presence, but her voice growing shriller. Character assassination? Are you serious right now? I asked you about your image, your relationships, and one industry rumor. Air like a slap. Keanu stared at her for a long moment, his jaw working as if he was physically restraining himself from saying something he might regret. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried to every corner of the silent studio. You know what, Drew? You're right about one thing. People don't know the real me. They don't know that I've spent years learning to control my temper because I grew up watching anger destroy the people I loved. They don't know that I choose privacy because I've seen what public exposure can do to relationships, to families, to innocent people who just want to live there. Lives. They don't know that every day I have to make a conscious choice to be kind in a world that rewards cruelty. His voice was gaining strength now, raw emotion bleeding through the cracks in his composure. But, apparently, choosing kindness makes me fake. Protecting my privacy makes me suspicious. Treating people with respect makes me calculated. Well, congratulations, Drew. You've managed to do what decades of tabloids and gossip columnists couldn't. You've made me question why I bother trying to be decent at all. Drew opened her mouth to respond, but Keanu held up a hand, silencing her. I'm not finished. You want to know what's really sad? It's that you had an opportunity to have a meaningful conversation with someone who genuinely tries to make the world a little better. And instead, you chose to try to tear them down for sport. You had a chance to model the kind of discourse that could elevate your audience. And instead, you chose to demonstrate that even kindness can be twisted into a weapon against someone. The studio was so quiet now that the hum of the cameras seemed deafening. Drew's face had gone pale, her earlier bravado evaporating as she realized the magnitude of what she had unleashed. Keanu, I think you're overreacting, she said weakly, but her voice lacked any conviction. Am I? He asked, tilting his head with a bitter smile. Let me ask you something, Drew. When you were preparing for this interview, when you were planning these questions, Did you stop for even one moment to consider that I'm a human being? Did you think about the fact that behind the public persona is someone who has feelings, who has experienced loss and pain and tries every day to not let that darkness consume him? Drew's silence was answer enough. I thought not, Keanu continued, because it's easier to see public figures as characters in your entertainment, rather than as people deserving of basic human dignity. It's easier to justify cruelty when you convince yourself that your target isn't really human. The camera caught a tear rolling down Drew's cheek, but Keanu wasn't finished. His voice took on a tone of profound disappointment that was somehow worse than anger. You know what breaks my heart about this moment? It's not that you tried to humiliate me. I can handle that. There are people who will think that this is how you treat others, that this is what conversation looks like, that this is what success in media requires, who have tried, like me, to choose kindness over cynicism, who are now wondering if they're just fools for believing that decency matters. Drew was crying openly now, her carefully applied makeup running down her face. Keanu, please, I never meant for this to go so far. I was just trying to create good television. Good television, he repeated, the words dripping with disdain. At whose expense? Drew, at what cost? The question lingered in the air like smoke from a fire that had consumed everything in its path. Drew wiped at her eyes, smearing mascara across her cheeks, her voice barely a whisper when she finally spoke. I'm sorry, Keanu. I'm so sorry. You're right. I got carried away. I wanted ratings. I wanted a viral moment, and I lost sight of everything else. Keanu looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time since the interview began, his expression softened slightly. But when he spoke, his voice remained firm. Your apology doesn't undo the damage, Drew. It doesn't erase the example you've set or the message you've sent. I know, she said, her voice breaking. I know I messed up. Can we please just start over? Can we talk about your movie like we should have from the beginning? Keanu shook his head slowly, a gesture that seemed to carry the weight of decades of disappointment with human nature. No, Drew, we can't start over. Some things can't be undone with an apology and a do-over. Some moments reveal who we really are, and there's no taking that back. The studio audience shifted uncomfortably as they witnessed this raw display of accountability and consequence playing out in real time. Some were wiping away tears of their own, moved by the honesty of the moment. But I am sorry, Drew insisted, standing up and taking a step toward him. I really am. I admire you, Keanu. I always have. I don't know why I thought attacking you was the right approach. You thought it was right because it's what gets rewarded in this industry, Keanu replied, his voice heavy with sadness. Controversy generates clicks. Drama gets ratings. Kindness doesn't trend on social media, but that doesn't make it acceptable. He turned toward the audience, addressing them directly. I want to say something to the people watching this. What you've witnessed here today is a choice that we all face every single day. We can choose to build people up or tear them down. We can choose to approach others with curiosity and respect, or we can choose to exploit their vulnerabilities for our own gain. The cameras captured the rapt attention of every person in that studio as Keanu continued. I've spent my career trying to choose the former, even when it would be easier to choose the latter. Even when people question my motives, even when they call it fake or calculated. Because I believe that how we treat each other matters more than ratings or viral moments or social media engagement. Drew was openly sobbing now, her hands covering her face as she realized the full impact of what she had done. Please don't leave, she said through her tears. Please, give me a chance to make this right. Keanu's expression was kind but resolute. Drew, you can make this right, but not with me, not today. You can make it right by learning from this moment. You can make it right by treating your next guest with the dignity and respect that every human being deserves. You can make it right by remembering that behind every public persona is a person with feelings and struggles and hopes, just like everyone else. He picked up his jacket from the chair and began putting it on, his movements deliberate and final. You can make it right by being better tomorrow than you were today. But I won't be here to see it, and I won't pretend that this didn't happen. Keanu, please, Drew called out as he began walking toward the edge of the set. Don't let this be how people remember this interview. Don't let this be my legacy. He stopped and turned back to face her one last time. Your legacy isn't this one, interview Drew. Your legacy is every choice you make from here forward. Every guest you treat with respect. Every question you ask with genuine curiosity instead of calculated malice. Every moment you choose humanity over ratings. That's your legacy. The studio was so quiet that the sound of his footsteps seemed to echo as he walked away from the interview area. But before he reached the exit, he paused and spoke once more, his voice carrying across the stunned silence. "I want to thank the audience for witnessing this," he said, without turning around. "Not because I enjoyed it, but because sometimes truth only emerges in moments of conflict. Sometimes we only discover what we really believe when someone challenges us to defend it." He turned slightly, enough that the camera caught his profile. "I believe in kindness, even when it's difficult. I believe in privacy, even when it's questioned. I believe in treating others with dignity, even when they don't extend the same courtesy to me. And I believe that we can all do better, be better, choose better." With that, he walked off the set, leaving Drew standing alone in the interview area, her face streaked with tears and her show in ruins. The cameras continued rolling as she struggled to compose herself, the silence stretching on until it became unbearable. Finally, she looked directly into the main camera, her voice barely audible. "I owe everyone an apology. I owe Keanu an apology. I owe you, the viewers, an apology. And I owe myself the commitment to do better." The screen faded to black as the production crew scrambled to figure out how to salvage what was left of the show, but the damage was done. In less than 30 minutes, viewers had witnessed the complete dismantling of a talk show format built on superficial pleasantries and manufactured drama, replaced by something raw and real and utterly unforgettable. What started as an attempt to create viral content had instead created a masterclass in integrity, accountability, and the cost of treating human dignity as entertainment. And in walking away, Keanu Reeves had delivered his most powerful performance without ever breaking character as himself. So, what do you think pushed Drew to take such an aggressive approach with someone known for being genuinely kind? Was this a calculated risk that backfired, or did she simply get caught up in the moment? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that go behind the scenes of Hollywood's most shocking moments.